poll shows nearly 2/3 of Americans think that the nation's economy is in good shape. And, well, most of them now believe that President Trump's policies are partly at least responsible for this happening. This, as a new Gallup poll reveals, that 67% of Americans believe that now is a good time to find a quality job in the country. By the way, it's the highest percentage in 17 years of Gallup polling. With me now to discuss, Christopher Bedford, the Daily Caller News Foundation editor-in-chief, and Mattie Duppler, Independent Women's Forum visiting fellow. Mattie, I got to start with you. Again, it's always anecdotal with me, but I pay attention, and whether it's a strip mall, the regular mall, wherever I go, I'm seeing help wanted signs. I'm seeing people shop. I'm seeing parking, the malls packed. Whether people want to tell surveyors, listen, that they like Trump or not, they seem to be enjoying this economy.
Yeah, and this is what I keep telling politicians who are asking, what should I be running on in November? Americans feel the economy really more than they even think about the economy. Voters are smart. They know exactly what their paychecks look like, what they're paying in taxes. But really, we know this from the last several cycles. Even though the numbers, some of these economic metrics started to nudge upwards under Obama, with the Trump administration, the deregulatory agenda that they've put into motion, the tax reform plan going into effect this year, Americans are finally starting to feel like their own personal circumstances are changing, and that's showing up in polling numbers. And of course, there will continue to be fundamentals that change that underlie that confidence.
Chris, I always believe that success begets success, and more so than anything else when it comes to economic policies, people have to buy into it in order for it to work, and it looks like more and more people are doing just that.
And, it's a kind of a retelling of the way the media overreacted before the election when Donald Trump was running. And we had all these screeds and these cringeworthy things where reporters say, oh, my gosh, we did this by giving him airtime. And I bet you once the American people start to come around more to a good U.S. economy, a lot of reporters are going to say, oh, no, we overwhelmed them with negative news stories, that all these this is not normal stuff. And Americans, they're pretty much tuning out a lot of the Russia stuff, a lot of the Mueller stuff, a lot of the day-to-day drama and Game of Thrones garbage. And they're looking around and they're feeling pretty good about their jobs. Now, the last 17 years were a pretty rough run for the U.S. economy. Dot-com boom, 9/11, we had the slow recession, then we had 8 years of Jimmy Carter-like policies. Finally, we've got a change in that, and it's showing in the polls.
Yeah, we had certainly come to learn how to celebrate mediocrity and so-called green shoots, right? We really lowered ourselves to celebrating things that we normally wouldn't have. Mattie, to that point, though, there are some elements of the economy, though, that still don't seem to be falling in place, like wage growth. It's growing, but not at the pace people would have thought it would grow at this point. What's going on with that?
I don't think that people need to be worried about what we're seeing on wages right now. We're just entering the third act of tax reform starting to be implemented in this country. That means all the business behavior that's going to change because of tax reform. Businesses bringing profits back from overseas, investing here in the United States are going to really start to take hold, and we're going to see wages rise. And we see this in some of the job numbers too, right? The fact that we're at full employment, some of these pressures on the labor economy that we have right now are going to manifest in an increase in wages. And this again will show up for average Americans and how they're feeling back at home. They'll feel better off because they are better off.
In the meantime, Chris, though, we know Democrats are going to say, hey, you may have gotten quote unquote crumbs. The big boys and girls are getting a lot of money, and these corporations are buying billions of dollars worth of their own stock. Is that fair? Is that fair game?
Well, I think it's certainly fair to see that the populist balloon, that the amount of pressure on American society that made people like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump popular in the first place has not been released, and it won't be released by the first 4 years of the President Trump's term. The wage growth that we've seen has been small. It's been more than we've seen in years, though, because while the economy has continued to get better over the years, wage growth has been stagnant in America for decades. Owners are investing in robots and automation. They're investing in bringing in foreign labor to do the jobs instead of Americans. It's not a good thing, and I think that the anger amongst the populace that elected Donald Trump will still be there, and Democrats and Republicans should be very careful to forget about that.
One thing we have to do, too, in my opinion, we got to stop paying people not to work. Chris, Mattie, thank you both very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, America's ongoing battle against the opioid addiction